Call a meeting to order, the February 13th, 2023 Goffstown Select Board meeting. And first order of business would be the Pledge of Allegiance. Please all join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is this acceptance and correction of, if necessary, minutes, and we'll start with the 1:23:23 public and non-public.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 1:23:23 public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second.
Anybody have any corrections or discussion at all on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Motion passes. 1:27:23 public minutes.
I'll make a motion we accept the 1:27:23 public minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, the motion passes. And then 2/7/23.
Make a motion we approve the minutes from 2/7/2023 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Collis. Any discussion, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, the motion passes. Next, we have one announcement. And this is reference candidates night. Meet the candidates running for elected office in Goffstown at the Lions Club. At the Lions Club, meet the candidates night. All local candidates are invited to give a short presentation on their values and politics to inform voters why they are running for office. A short Q&A with the audience will follow the presentation. I thought that was not going to happen.
The Q&A?
Yeah.
That's what was posted on the libraries. I can reach out to Diane and see if there's further clarification on that matter.
Yeah, that's, according to Lions Club, they're not going to have a Q&A.
Okay, I can talk to Diane,
Okay.
see if there might have been.
If something changes, let us know, but as far as I know,
Yep.
the talk was that there was going to be no Q&A.
Gotcha.
All Goffstown residents are invited to attend to hear the presentations and to ask questions of the candidates. Will be found out probably not. As a bonus, all attendees will get the first look at the Goffstown Public Library's candidate information brochure. The resource collected responses from all participating candidates in one convenient place. The brochure will be available for download at the event at thegoffstownlibrary.com or pick up the Goffstown Public Library in the town clerk's office. The event will be recorded by Goffstown or by GTV, Goffstown's community television station. Contact Diane Hathaway at area code 603-497-2102, and the location of the candidates night is the Goffstown High School Media Center. Again, that's at 7 o'clock, I believe. And we're going to find out about the question and answer.
Yep.
It was my understanding, and we'll have to check that, they recommended that the candidates hung around.
Okay,
And people-
informally, rather.
Informally, you could go up and ask questions.
Okay, I'll clarify that.
Yeah, that was my understanding when I last read it. Huh?
Take forever if they had Q&A.
Well, that was the point, that if they had Q&A, it could last with the amount of candidates that are there, so. You got 5 minutes, Derek, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, your next page, you have your committee meeting schedule. Tomorrow night at 5:30 p.m., the sewer commission will be here. The trustees of the trust fund are meeting at 6 p.m. upstairs. On Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., the library trustees are meeting at the public library.
Yep.
The Parks and Rec meeting has been canceled, so that is a change from when we printed. Next week, on Wednesday, 6:30 p.m., HCC will be meeting at Grassmere Town Hall.
Yep.
And at 7 p.m., Conservation will be meeting at Town Hall.
Yes,
And on Thursday at 7 p.m., Planning Board will be in this room.
yes.
Thank you. At your next page, you have your consent agenda. You have employee status reports for Police Executive Secretary, successful completion of probationary period and step increase. You have a new hire for a DPW truck driver, and you have 2 promotions for firefighter to master firefighter position. You also have 2 event permits. Goffstown Citizens Committee is Springfest, which is a local business and family fun event on Saturday, April 1st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Goffstown High School.
Can I ask a question? Who is that group? I haven't heard of it before.
So they are the group that is associated with the Boy Scouts, or I think it's referred to as BSA Scouting now, but it's the charter committee that is overseeing the Boy Scout and the Cub Scout troop in town for as long as they've been around.
Okay, great.
And then you have Goffstown Junior Baseball Opening Day Parade on Saturday, April 29th from 8 to 9. There's a little bit change to the parade route to make it a little bit easier. They are departing from the high school and will be on Mass Road, and from the high school to the fields, and that would be subject to NHDOT approval. You have an equitable sharing agreement and certification for the police department. You have out-of-state travel notification for 2023 Fire Department Instructors Conference for the fire captain. You have a license agreement with Verizon Wireless. This allows us to place police and fire radio infrastructure on St. Anselm Water Tower. We have deposit vouchers for Grassmere Town Hall Restoration Fund. There is a rental for the use of Grassmere Town Hall, as well as an annual, that should be LCHIP, stewardship grant. We have a contract for prosecutorial services with the town of Francistown. And then added this afternoon, there are 3 motor vehicle titles for the chairman to sign as both the seller and the buyer. These are transfers from the police department to DPW.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
At your next page, you have your assessor's recommendations. You have land use change tax and land use change tax warrant recommended for map 8, lot 29, map 12, lot 10, map 12, lot 10-1, and map 12, lot 10-2, and you have a tax deferral for elderly or disabled, which is recommended for map 43, lot 7.
Motion to approve the assessor's recommendations as presented.
Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
At your next page, you have a request for an expense reimbursement from impact fees. This is requesting the release of impact fees to offset expenses incurred in relation to the communications expansion project. And there's the finance director as well as police chief and fire chief are seeking to reimburse the general fund an amount of $34,238.90, again, to offset the expansion and for the communication project that is wrapping up.
And was this for the over expenditure, or?
Yes, a portion went to the, this was not the over expenditure that you approved at your previous meeting, but this was an over expenditure for cabinets that needed to be installed at Mountain View Middle School and Station 17. There were 2 outdoor cabinets that needed to be installed that were not as part of the regular bid.
Motion?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jim.
Could you just tell me why, how they expire, how that works?
Yes, so impact fees are governed by the state's land use statutes, and our town has 4 different fees that are collected at the time a new dwelling is created. And once they're created, you have a 6-year time clock that you have to use them for capital, for an expansion of capital infrastructure, and if you don't, you have to return it to the owner of the property.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Motion?
Motion to approve the release for $34,238.90 from the public safety impact fee accounts to offset the expenses incurred in relations to the 2022 communications project and reimbursement to the town general fund.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. Is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment section and continue on.
At your next page, you have a request for volunteer appointments. This is the last member of the Village Bridge Ad Hoc Committee. The request is to appoint David Pierce, who would be acting as a rep from the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail. So the request would be his appointment to that
I'll
ad
make
hoc
a
committee.
motion to appoint David Pierce as Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail representative with a term that expires on May 1st, 2024.
Second.
And that appointment was recommended by the Rail Trail Committee?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Motion by Carl, seconded by Jim. Is further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
At your next page, you have a town-wide fee update, and you have the most up-to-date that is printed in front of you. The Select Board does have the ability to modify fees. It is required that you hold a public hearing. It was my request to have you review the proposed changes if you had any specific questions for department heads, and we would schedule a public hearing for your meeting in 2 weeks to adopt these changes. And really, now would be an opportunity to ask any questions or get any clarification on these proposed changes.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I know that, you know, some of these seem a bit low still. So do you know, did we look at other communities and kind of what the averages were for these? Or were we just making, like, how do we decide on how much to increase?
So I know on the, all the building permit, electrical permit, plumbing, and those in demo, our new building inspector actually did look at surrounding communities, and he also has experience as a building inspector in the town of Greenland, as well as one other community. I tasked him with looking at those, so he looked at Bedford, Hooksett, some other area ones, and moved ours more in line. There is a change that we would go from, rather than charging a per square foot, we would, the fees would be based on the value of the construction, which he said about 80% of communities use that method rather than based on the square footage.
And then some of the other ones were in relation to kind of town-owned entities to rent.
Yes.
Did we do any like comparable research on those? Because some of them still seem a little low, but
What page you on?
that's accurate. I was trying to find the one for Grassmere Town Hall, and specifically is what I had reviewed
So that's
prior.
on page 4 of 11 at the bottom. We have not made a proposed change to that. Again, without the elevator, we haven't been getting a lot of requests. We've had Mary Lou's used it, and we've had a couple of dance groups that have used it. And so we haven't had a lot of use there. And I think we could definitely look at what other communities are charging for that type of space.
Okay.
And I know some of the other departments, I think,
Parks and Rec had a handful as well.
yes, and the fire department made some adjustments to theirs as well on page 7.
Going back to Grassmere, it says $25 an hour, 2-hour minimum.
Yes.
Okay.
That is that's the current fee that's been in place since 2021.
Do we let people know it's available? Or do we have a way to let people know it's available?
Just like online marketing, you mean?
We could put out an announcement of all the town space that's available and link it to our facility use policy as well.
That might be a good idea.
Can I ask, I know there's a form that the HDC created for that rental.
Yes.
Who manages requests for those rentals?
They come into Catherine, and under your facility use policy, each department head is responsible for reviewing the requests related to their department. So Grassmere specific, I get those requests.
Okay.
Catherine makes sure she has all the information, the data's available, they have the proper insurance, and then when that comes over, I'll review it and then sign off on it.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions?
And I did
Input? Go ahead.
I did want to just bring a few items to your attention so they're not surprises. We do have some changes that the new building inspector has recommended. This is on page 2 of 11. Specifically to include in building permits roofing, anytime somebody's roofing, replacement or new windows, replacement of new siding. What he's seen in a couple of he's seen a couple of roofing projects as he's driven by, and he's pulled over, and he's, they don't meet current snow loads, or he's seen at least 2 instances where they were putting a 3rd layer of shingles on, not just a 2nd layer. So he's seen a lot of things, and that would be a change to what we had done previously.
I have a question on that.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So I guess my concern would be, because we haven't had these fees in the past, how will we manage that, letting people know?
I think we'd
Just
have
letting people
to
know.
get, yeah, we would have to get word out and work with probably some of the different flyers that go direct to residents through the mail about some of these new fees that are in, these permit requirements that are out there, and then also notify some of the local vendors that do that type of work that we actually do.
And then my follow-up question is, what would the building inspector do if he had come across one of these replacements or new builds being done and asked, like, why didn't you get a permit for it? I'm
So we do
assuming
have a
that's what he's
process
doing.
there is the ability to get an after-the-fact permit, and there is a slight penalty for that depending on how much work has actually been accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
So he would work on that. I know the county right now is having their roofs redone on the piggery.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah, and they didn't have a permit, so he helped get that all straightened out. He had the contractor come in, and so.
Okay, that
I
would be
don't
my only.
necessarily agree with all of this.
Yeah, well, I do have a
know.
lot of questions, like windows.
Yeah, that was my,
Why would we, what would be the purpose of, like, I guess, is this standard practice and why? Because I know nothing about building inspections.
We could definitely have and show you the data that he collected and have that for you available at the public hearing.
because that's pretty confusing. If somebody's replacing a door or a window or a slider or something, does they have to come in and get a permit for it? I mean, I don't think, Jim, you had a question?
No, just philosophically, we're trying to cut costs, and we're trying to, we've had a big discussion about, people are getting nickel and dime to death, and I'm just wondering whether this is a good time to do this. Unless we're running in the red or something, that was my first thought, that, we voted, well, the library's a different thing, but for the same reason. We didn't do any warrants because we're trying to save money, and it just, what does it say to the town that we're raising fees?
But furthermore, I agree with you, but I would like information on why, because maybe there's a reason why this is
Yeah,
important, and I
there's a-
don't know.
Like I said, there's a
Yeah.
reason, but just to do it, it's, still not a good time.
And then it's geared on the value,
Yes.
and it's a $50 minimum?
It's gonna depend on, but yeah, most of the permits would be $50 minimum, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to, go ahead, call us.
Derek, do you have a sense for how much additional revenue these increases would generate in some form?
I don't, we could look
I don't
at.
need you to get into specifics, but I mean, have you thought about,
We could look at what we've had we had in permits last year and see if we can kind of prorate and what that would make
That'd be
a
helpful.
difference for.
just want to get a sense for what
Yep.
we're talking about.
Yeah, I would never go along with somebody who wants to replace a couple of windows and have to pay a $50 permit fee just to replace a window or two, That doesn't make sense to me. So,
Yeah, in 2021, the building and health permits brought in about $112,500, and this past year, $167,328.
167, 328,
Yes, but we can try and
that was 2022.
extrapolate that out, what the new permits would generate.
That's 2022.
Yes. And that, yeah, so that department is currently generates a little bit more revenue than comes in, but again, we also have shared positions with some of the other departments assessing, so.
anybody else? Okay, so when do we want to, when you schedule a meeting?
If you're okay scheduling with a hearing, and then we can bring those answers to the hearing, I'd like to schedule it for the 27th.
So I guess
Oh, that's fine.
going ahead to a public hearing, I would want to say that we would be in agreement to what we're reading.
The other option would be, we could come back with those answers on the 27th, and then have a public hearing some point in March.
Yeah.
So do you mean separate out the new fee, this new fee section specifically?
Whenever,
Would-
which fee, which
The
ones?
building, the new building fees?
Yeah, do you want to just pull those out and do a public hearing for everything else, or do you want to wait?
No, let's not do it twice, let's just do it once.
Okay, I can bring those answers.
And on the first page, it says new permit application fee.
Yes.
That's just, if somebody wants to build a house, they gotta pay $25 permit fee?
So what we get is, we've actually seen a lot of applications that come in and you'll review them and they don't have enough information, you never get anything back. Or we've had a lot of them that come in, you do review, we'll do a zoning review and say you need to go to the zoning board for a variance or special exception, and the person opts out. But at that point, you've
You've got-
invested some staff time.
I agree. Okay, I get
And
it.
our thought would be, you collect that application fee when somebody brings it in, and if they do get a permit, you would apply that against the permit fee. So we're not looking to charge people twice.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark?
On page 10 of 11, under cemetery, the columbarium niches, do I understand, new category, looking for $1,000?
Yes, and I believe that's proposed by the cemetery trustees, or?
That was proposed by me, but the previous discussion we had with the trustees was to hope to offset the cost of. So when you look at those columbarium purchase and then the foundation setup, they're pretty expensive. So for the number of units, I think that one is a 24-unit columbarium. They basically need that much at least to pay for the columbarium itself, plus a little bit of the maintenance for the
So
setup.
that charge, they don't get charged that, there's no charge for the columbarium, or?
So they would pay $1,000 to purchase the columbarium spot, and then any opening or an interment or a disinterment would be the same, a similar rate to what we charge now for interments and disinterments on a grave after they've already purchased.
So what would the total
plot.
cost be?
For the purchase would be $1,000, and then the interment, so the first, the opening of it, let's see, I think I've got that.
They're just below that, they're, I think, like.
I see
4
that,
bucks,
but-
yeah.
Yep.
So it'd be $1,250?
Pretty much.
So $250 is for a cemetery lot. If you go down a little bit further, near the bottom 4 up from the bottom, columbarium
Yep.
niche would be $100 for the interment. And then $175 if it's on a weekend.
Have we
and that's-
looked at Manchester and surrounding towns that have these?
I could look, but I think where it's, for us anyway, this was just an attempt to offset the cost. We're not trying to make money or, stick money in a kitty or anything like that. So I think it's probably going to vary depending on, factors of scale. So if somebody buys a 100-unit columbarium, they might be able to charge less than we could for, to try to offset the purchase. So the goal was not to make money, but also not to lose money on each one that's sold.
Okay.
So, you're gonna have somebody come in on the 27th, is that what you said? Or-
Yeah, we'll come, are there any other questions about any of the other fees, or I guess if you do, you can
Just-
email them to myself and we'll distribute it to the appropriate department head, so they can be prepared.
So, do we do the transfer station fees?
Yeah, there was a change, so on page 10 of 11, you have your solid waste. It actually starts on the bottom of page 9. So there are some changes in the solid waste piece.
Peter, I think it's a good idea to set a date for the board who has comments,
Yeah.
by which they get them in, because once we go to public hearing, we want to make sure, at least as a board, we're comfortable. Because once we get comment from the public hearing, possibility they're going to change it again, but,
Yeah, I think if board members could get me comment by next Monday,
okay.
that would allow department heads an opportunity to provide answers and be prepared on the 27th, which is your next meeting, to answer those questions.
That's a 20.
On 9 of 11, second row up, it says, is that supposed to be no fee?
For the
10
household
cubic
hazardous,
foot, 10 cubic foot container It says no free.
Column on the right, second from the bottom.
Yeah, I see it. Adam, can you help us with household hazardous waste? I know that you've eliminated the non-resident option, but it talks about first 20 gallons or 100 pounds free. You'd be looking to discontinue that?
Yes, so it becomes a little bit of a tracking issue for us. So on the non-resident, we've largely been subsidizing, even non-residents. We charge them a higher rate, but it's becoming like 75% of each quarterly pickup is non-residential hazardous waste, and then the revenues that we have been getting are nowhere near enough to offset the time, and we don't have enough, we don't have dedicated staff for that job. So for the two people that are qualified, it's become a little bit too much to offer statewide, and the more word spreads, the more people come. So I'd prefer to let them work with their regional planning commissions for their regular rotating hazardous waste days. And if you would like, Goffstown, we could be a host site for one of those if we really wanted to. But I'd like to still be able to offer the service. I think it's a good one for Goffstown waste, which might otherwise end up in Goffstown trash or recycling or dumped, heaven forbid, somewhere else. So I'd like to still subsidize the resident side, but it becomes tough to track their third visit of the year, how many gallons did they bring the first couple, and when we're not charging, it kind of sets up a paper chase that really doesn't pay off really for anybody.
Okay, but right above that was my question, where it says no free,
Yes,
which is not, that affects residents, right?
it does. So what I'd like to do is bring the charge to a volume-based. When we get rid of this stuff every quarter, we're filling these 3 large 1 cubic yard Gaylords, and we're basically able to average how much those Gaylords cost each. So what we can do is take that rate, divide it down to a smaller size, and we can charge almost like a carry-on fee for residents. They can come in with a little tote basket, whatever they can fit in a 1 cubic foot container. We'll charge them $10. That's a pretty low rate compared with what we're paying still, so we're still subsidizing the residents. So for those that might only bring in a can of off or something like that, I won't say this too loud, but we're not charging those people a fee if it's literally 1 can of bug spray. But if you come in with a couple gallons of gas, a couple cans of paint, and some pesticides, that sort of thing, if we charge by volume, but at that lower amount of just $10, if it's your first trip of the year, you might pay the $10. But if it's your 4th or 5th trip of the year, you're actually going to be saving money based on the existing rates. We've also found with a shift, or what we would find with a shift is right now it's tough when a lot of these chemicals are liquids. Do we charge them by the gallon or by the pound? So if you have a gallon of paint, you're talking about 8 pounds of paint, and at the old rates that if we went by the pound, that would be a pretty expensive visit. I think originally the thought was the gallons were more for gas, cans of gas. So we'd like to break that off. Gas would be its own category, but then everything else would just be by volume, and it would still be at that pretty low rate, so it would be palatable for folks. And if they have a lot of it, for some reason, they're still not paying much at all compared to what they would have brought if they had a whole carload, for example.
Mark?
Isn't there a program in place now to keep track of the people that bring the hazardous material stuff into the landfill? Doesn't Gary give them a slip to fill out?
We do. We have, so we have them, right now we do it by appointment rather than, the scheduled day. So
Yep.
we have, on the front end, we have an appointment scheduling form where they kind of list what they have to drop off so he can be ready. If somebody says, I've got 10,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate, we might, before they throw it all in the car and drive down.
You
tell
got a few
them,
gallons of diesel
we
fuel
can't-
too, right?
Right, we can't take that. So that's the one form at the beginning, and then at the end, we have we're supposed to, based on our grant program, do a survey. How did you find out about the program? How often do you use it? What kind of, how did this come about? Did you buy a house and it had 1 million gallons of paint in the basement when you bought it? That sort of thing. So
You can pretty much follow that throughout the year, right? With that same person. Let's say if I go to the dump one time and dump,
Transfer station.
or the transfer station, sorry, and I dump fuel, bad fuel, doesn't he write that down on the slip?
So we do, but it's not, we're not, for most of the hazardous waste up until now, we haven't been using the system, the scale system, in other words, so each account hasn't been, tracking the free amounts. You might take somebody 5 or 6 visits to get above that first threshold, but we haven't been could we? Probably, but it's kind of like weighing the pros and cons of, the additional paperwork end of it versus let's just keep costs as low as we can and still, the town still would be subsidizing several thousand a year. It cost us $30,000 last year to get rid of hazardous waste. We only charged just under $12,000 for that, so we subsidized $18,000 worth of waste disposal. 8,000 of that 11.8 in revenue, 8,000 came from non-residents. So town of Goffstown residents paid about $3,800 last year for whatever they brought in. Some of that's the free. But if we up to the new rates, it's going to be roughly the same. It's going to be about $1,000 a visit, so about $3,000 to $4,000 for the whole year for Goffstown residents. So as a whole, it's going to be about the same. And again, with the onesie twosie stuff, we don't, we're not nickel and diamond folks when they come in. It's really people that have a bin worth of
Thank you.
waste.
Anybody got any questions? Anything else? Okay, so we're all set on what we're gonna do next.
Yes, so if board members, again, could filter their questions through me and Danielle, we'll get them to department heads, and if you could have them to us by Monday of next week, that'd be great.
And we're now into old business.
I think there was one other,
I'm sorry, I missed it.
yeah, it's not in your,
Oh.
it's the draft voters guide.
Oh, yeah.
So what you do have, you had one over the weekend, and then there is a revised copy I've added some language that was requested by the petitioners of the library bond. The Library Board of Trustees had some requested language on the third page that we were able to incorporate. Again, it was completely factually based, so felt that it was appropriate to include that. We've also added some additional budget items that we have not in the past, as well as on the very last page, we provided residents with a 2023 property valuation update notice. This is information that was contained in the letter that went out with the second half property tax bill. But again, to give people a heads up that assessments, we're going through the property valuation update this year. Once we get all the items from the school, we might have to shift some items around. If we have any space left, what we would propose adding is, in the past, we've provided an update on fund balance and an explanation of what fund balance is, so we would add that in. But I would just be looking for, again, your approval or questions on this so that we can, once we get the items from the school and add those in, we can send it off to the printer.
Anybody? Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. The only question I had was for Article 16.
Yes.
The explanation just says that the article was submitted by petition, the supervisors of the checklist, certified 27 registered voters signed the petition. Should we include in there why we didn't vote to recommend it? I mean, we don't normally, but
I don't know if that's
should
I don't know if we
is
should
that-
do that with it, whereas as a petitioned article.
I guess if you as a board wanted to add that, of why you voted to not recommend, I don't have a problem adding that, but it wasn't for something for me to, I guess,
Right.
kind of come up with. The only other item I was considering adding to that was that, that no one spoke of this at the deliberative session.
Well, that's what I was thinking, that no presentation was given by the petitioner or
That would
something
be a
like
good,
that.
that would be a good,
And we did have a brief discussion about how it was so complicated, we couldn't even
Right.
understand.
Right.
it.
But I just don't want it to come off of like that we don't support potentially even, you know what I mean? Like, that's essentially why we didn't, because we didn't have enough information as to how this would impact us. Or even if it was just a vote of confidence. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we should just add something, but like we just didn't get information from the petitioner.
we did not recommend on the merits of it, but we didn't have any information and nobody came forward with the information.
The only explanation I got is mirrored to California law, somebody said, and I said, well, California law, you can't use a weed whacker, you can't, you gotta have special lawnmowers, and we don't want,
Could we add a little bit of language, not recommended as presented?
not recommended because it wasn't presented, how's
Wasn't
that?
presented, yeah.
Well, that's as presented.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah, true.
I can put something that no presentation to the select board or the deliberative session was offered by the registered voters that submitted the article.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, there needs to be
I
some
would do
words.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything else?
No, that was the only one I had a thought on.
Need a motion or anything on this?
No, that's fine. Oh, yeah, actually, I would appreciate a motion to move forward with the town's
Town, the
portion.
2023 official ballot voters guide,
Yes, please.
that was made by,
Yep.
Yep. I'll second it.
Mark made the motion, and Carl seconded it. Any more discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. Now the action matrix. Update on this, anything?
So the Village Bridge ad hoc is going to meet on March 7th to begin that. And then on Wednesday of this week, I'm going to be attending a webinar on congressional funding requests that's being held by Senator Shaheen's office. I know some of the other rail trails have been successful in getting some funding through that, so.
Kelly, have you done anything with your updates, policy
No.
updates? No? Kind of busy right now.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, and number one item up there that we ask every meeting is, have we had any future?
Yeah, the police chief and I have talked with the county administrator. If you'd like, I can bring you up to date in
Yeah, would you,
non-public on that.
non-public, I
Yep.
appreciate that. Ambulance 3's back in service, fire tower still out?
Oh, yeah, there was a software and break communication issue. I believe they expect it back at the end of this week.
Hopefully, yes. Okay, we got the six-wheel dump out, curbside trucks out, VACCON engine trouble.
Didn't we,
Go ahead, Adam.
The six-wheel dump, I'm sorry, the curbside truck is actually picked up. We got that Friday. It's gonna be a little bit for the part they need, so we're able to keep it in service. We just have to keep tabs on the.
Okay, so it's working, but it just needs some parts on it that are on order,
Back
okay.
in service, it'll be out again soon. Back on reach with the winter repairs, we haven't had a chance to get into that and diagnose yet, so.
And that trailer's been a Donovan's forever.
It has. They finally got it inside, and one of our staff was there for something else, and they laughed when they asked him if it was going to be ready soon. So Zeb was out last week, but he's going to check this week and find out why that is so funny and what the expanding scope might be on that job.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions, comments? Anything else? Mort?
make a motion, you got non-public? Or-
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay, RSA, make a motion, RSA 91A:3, comma 2 for A, compensation. Anything else?
B, hiring.
B, hiring.
C, adversely affect the reputation of a person other than a member of the public body itself. And then D, land.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Any discussion on any of this? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. That'll conclude tonight's public portion of the Goffstown Select Board meeting.